Welcome to the webinar. This webinar is presented by Balboa Solutions, and we're going to be covering scaling employee experience with data. And we currently have here, uh, Ben Herkenhoff. He's going to be helping us with this webinar. We're going to be talking about all this topic. It's going to be great. This is going to be recorded, so anybody who is in this session will have this recording sent out to them. So anybody on, please take a moment to introduce yourself and where you're from. And if you have any questions, we have some people that are in the chat ready to help answer those, and we will answer those together as well. So I'm going to give a quick introduction to Ben, and then Ben, I'll let you give your introduction to yourself after that. But Ben Herkenhoff is a director of product at JLL, where he leads the development of data-driven solutions that empower clients to make smarter real estate decisions. With a background in product strategy, user experience, and business intelligence, Ben specializes in building platforms that transform complex data into actionable insights. He brings over a decade of experience in product management across enterprise software and Protect. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to give us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Super happy to be here. That's a pretty good overview of what I do. But yeah, I lead a team of people who work across at JLL to understand how our real estate management services can utilize data to be able to help drive decisions. So I have a team of product managers and UX designers and researchers. Um, Under me to help build out our product to serve a mostly internal uh, user base, but also some of our clients do use our application as well.
Yeah, Ben, how did you get into that? Because I'm sure you didn't. Did you start out in real estate?
No, I didn't. I've been in a number of industries from marketing to media to M&A. But what's really nice about being focused on data and analytics is that a lot of the problems you're solving are fairly similar. It's just understanding kind of that new domain. I'm sure everybody has had the experience of trying to wrangle data and be able to understand what insights you can figure out and drive from it, and that's really at the crux of what my job is and what I try to help achieve.
Awesome. So, as I understand it, JLL is the second biggest in commercial real estate that does what JLL does. Headquartered in Chicago, is that correct?
That's right, yeah. So JLL is a global commercial real estate company, and I am focused on our real estate management services part of the business, which is really comprised of a few different areas. So workplace management is taking care of buildings both inside and out. Project development services, which is anything from putting in new equipment to building a whole new wing on a hospital or something like that. And then our portfolio services, which is looking at, lease administration and occupancy planning. Some really interesting things, especially as we have return to office initiatives and things like that happening across the world. There are a number of areas that we help use data to answer really interesting questions across our business.
Yeah. So, and you said that you're worldwide, or is it just United States?
No, we're a global company, so all over the world. Yeah.
Wow. So there's obviously a lot of challenges that come with that. So that's what we're going to focus on today is you've told me a part of the story already, which is really interesting. And I want to hear the challenges of JLL, and then we're going to jump into how you solve those and use those to kind of gather some insights.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the platform that I work on is called Azara, which is a BI application, and there's been a shift in the way that JLL approaches analytics to primarily what we try to drive is our homegrown analytics, and the reason for that is so that we can drive alignment and drive strategy across the entire world. So if we want to look at one part of the business. We're looking at similar metrics. We're measuring and managing teams in a similar way so we can compare apples to apples versus having decentralized BI teams that are really focused on what the client wants, which is great in a lot of ways, but doesn't allow us to have that global strategic view in other ways. So we still do allow and enable custom analytics in our platform, but we try to serve as many use cases and as many of our accounts and clients as we can with our baseline analytics that have that similar global strategic view of the kinds of questions that we want to answer and the way that we calculate the metrics that drive our business.
Okay, so let's it's really interesting, and I love these kind of tools that people make to solve these problems. So let's set the stage for everybody listening. We have JLL before Azara, and they had a challenge where they had, like you said, diverse users, fragmented data, unscalable custom analytics, kind of all of these things to where people wanted data, people wanted to see insights, but they weren't able to. They didn't know the path that they needed to take to get there. So then you came in, and there is an internal platform that is called Azara that was developed to do this exact thing. And this is what most people would consider a BI tool, right? There's a lot of BI tools out there. There's Domo, Tableau, things like that. My question for you is why didn't JLL just use a third party tool and instead made their own internally?
Yeah, I think there are well, I think there are a number of reasons. Um, First of all, using and having our own homegrown solution and data visualizations and application really allow us to own the look and the feel and drive the kind of experience that we want. I'm sure as everybody understands, these other third-party tools are large companies, and so if you ask for a feature to be built, your voice is one of many. So we're able to, really drive the experience for our users and make sure that our use case around real estate management services is addressed, and we can prioritize the way that our internal and our client users need to look at data and be able to make effective decisions. So that's one part of it, the look and the feel. The other part of it is definitely what I mentioned before, as far as strategy, making sure that the analytics that we provide are consistent across our accounts. But then uh, still having the flexibility to integrate those third-party tools, especially for clients who, already rely on those and maybe there are data sources that are very custom to them that we haven't brought into our data world yet. So we support many different use cases and make sure that our application is one that they can use kind of as a single pane of glass for analytics across everything they're trying to accomplish within the real estate, commercial real estate world.
Yeah, so when you explained this before, I really like something you had said that in prior to Azara, the company was using one-off requests to get data that people needed. They would ask maybe a ticketing system or something. It would just one-off things. They would get the answer and then they'd move on. Whereas now you have scalable analytics. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, so the way that we enable accounts now is it's not trying to figure out from scratch what are the analytics that you want to have, and then each one of those pieces or questions to be answered is built custom. So now we have a suite of baseline dashboards that we enable to be configurable in multiple ways so that it addresses, kind of that 80/20 rule of our accounts being able to utilize our baseline dashboards and change things like the way maybe that a word, maybe a nomenclature of a client, if a client calls something X and JLL calls it Y. If a client's going to be using that dashboard, we want to be able to enable those things to be changed so that it's something that's adopted easily by a client. Um, so there's both a kind of a baseline view of it, and then we allow this configurability to make sure that we can serve most use cases. so that it's a quick implementation, data is easily consumable, and it is consistent and standardized across many accounts. So if people are moving from one account to the other, they're able to come in and say, "Oh, I know what that means. I know the questions that that answers, and I know how to take action from that because I've done that before, and it's not a completely different view of the world."
Now, I'm sure, Ben, you have worked with many organizations that did not have such an amazing process in place to get data. My question for you is how would you recommend organizations that currently do not have a BI tool or do not have a BI team get started on something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's going to be different for everybody, I think. It really depends on where you find the most value. I think if it's something where you have where you're trying to maybe implement an AI strategy and you want to be able to utilize different many different data sources to holistically look at a problem. Um, then you're going to look into kind of the most up-to-date data warehousing tools and solutions that are out there to be able to utilize that. I know lots of people are thinking about that. Or if you're really focused in on, hey, there's this one data source that is going to drive a lot of value for us. I think making sure that you have that data in a model that allows you to ask those questions, whether you're
Hmm.
using a homegrown BI tool like we've built or you're using a third-party BI tool. It's really just kind of making sure that you understand you have a alignment on a strategy and you can understand how to get the most value for your clients or your users from that strategy.
Yeah, I think that is perfect. So I'd like to echo at least part of that, where I've been in organizations that they didn't have anything, and it was seemed very daunting to get started with something like this. And so what I always tell people with various different suggestions that I have is start small. And like you said, focus on a data source that you know brings value and pinpoint how you can understand that data source extremely well to answer questions. Because if you try to get a BI tool right off the bat and you don't understand the sources that you're going to be sending to that BI tool, it's going to be extremely difficult to get value out of any of the sources and the BI tool itself as well. So start small. That's what I always would recommend. Now, I did this with an organization to where instead of getting a BI tool, at least at the start, we focused on an application called Pendo, which was one that tracks user interactions with the data, which I know that JLL has. So I wanted to ask you how you had Pendo and how you used that, how that in was able to be pushed into the BI tool and how you were able to use that data.
Yeah, Pendo is critical to how we measure user engagement, and we use it in multiple ways. So we use Pendo's Resource Center for release notes. We also house documentation in that resource center. We have a monthly customer satisfaction survey that goes out. We actually have three different versions of that. So there's an onboarding survey, there's a 90-day out survey to say, hey, how's it going so far? And then every 6 months, post that 90 days, we check in to say, how well is Azara meeting your analytics needs? So that's been critical for us to understand how people are engaging with the application, what their pain points are, what they're enjoying about it. And it's also allowed us on that monthly cadence to really understand and communicate out that, hey, the things that we're doing are having a positive impact. We're listening to our users, both internally and from the client side, and uh, prioritizing our features to hit that or to improve their experience. Um, Other things that we're doing, so we have Pendo feedback really ingrained into our process. So it's something we have a submit an idea button that feeds back to Pendo feedback, and the product team looks at all those suggestions every single week. And it's a really great way to engage and have our or have our finger on the pulse of how people are feeling about the application and things that they want. And then, of course, we're using all of the analytics that come from Pendo. So We're tracking new features, understanding the engagement with them. Because we're a BI tool, speed of how quickly those analytics are populating for people is critical to us. So we're looking at dashboard and other analytic speed. And yeah, and then of course, just kind of looking at different accounts about who's logging in, who's not, where maybe we need to engage more across all of our different users. So Pendo is critical to how we track the success of our application.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, there's we're talking about scaling in this webinar and how we can scale. And I'm curious of specifically with feedback. You talked about that a little bit. When you're getting a lot of feedback in or a lot of data that Pendo can give, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. As I said before, it can be daunting. And so finding specific examples of the life cycle of certain data, it's really useful to me. I love hearing about it. So if you get, let's say, negative feedback in a feedback tool, what's the life cycle? Who looks at it? Where does it go from there? How is action taken on it?
Yeah, so that being at JLL has been one of the biggest differences for me. So I've come from a more of a SaaS background, right? And JLL is more of a service company. Historically. And so the expectation about receiving feedback and circling back with people is very different. Previously in my SaaS life, it would be, we're getting a lot of feedback, but there's not an expectation to reach out necessarily to people to say, hey, thank you for this. Here's what's happening with it,
Mhm.
and consistently update them. But that is the expectation at JLL. So Pendo feedback really allows us to do that because we can say, we can look at it every single week and then we can say, no, we're not going to consider this because of X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, this is a good idea. We're going to let people vote on it and that's going to help us prioritize it. And then
Mm.
the people who are submitting those ideas get that feedback in an email immediately. And then, once we get to the point where we prioritize a feature from an idea that's been voted on, we'll say, okay, it's in our planning stage. And then that person who submitted the idea and all the people that voted for it get an update on that. And then once it goes into development and once it's released, again, those emails happen on each stage of that progression. So it's been great in that way. And I don't get any questions about, hey, Ben, we submitted this. What's the update? Because people know about it for the most part. Sometimes I shouldn't say we don't ever get questions, but
Yeah.
it's been a really great way to keep people engaged and make sure that they feel like they know what's happening in our product lifecycle.
Yeah, I have a question I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I've seen a lot of organizations miss something, and I wonder how JLL handles positive feedback. Is there a life cycle for people giving positive feedback? How is that handled? Where does it go?
Yeah. So luckily that does happen as well, which is always very nice. So I mean, for us, it's a quick email back saying thank you to that person, of course. But then it's always really fun to share that with the engineering team and the product team and the design team. Everybody that's been working hard on the application. It's great to be able to share that kind of feedback. But love to hear from you if you have other suggestions, but that's really how it's done. We blast it out on Teams and make sure everybody sees that, and hopefully it motivates people to know that what they're doing is making it or having an impact.
Yeah, that last point is the main one that I think a lot of organizations miss is I think developers, product teams, they all have motivation gauge that is constantly going down as they're just doing the normal drudge of work. It's hard to build products, and giving them positive feedback is a way to help boost up those motivation levels. So I love that. I also love whenever positive feedback comes in to give that to like a CX ops team. A lot of people are looking for beta testers or people who can join certain webinars and other things. And usually you want people to come to be a beta tester if there's somebody who are singing your praises because they know the application and they know how it's helping them. And so getting them on a list of people that is important to an organization as well. So that's something that I've done in the past that I've seen success with. Well, I want to talk about how the lessons that you have learned. We talked about a lot of them so far, but the lessons you've learned from Azara, from JLL, how you got buy-in from stakeholders with all of this, just all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, when you're building an application for an internal audience, that becomes significantly more challenging, is what I've heard, because people are very passionate about their areas and they want to make sure that their needs are met. So it is definitely a lot of hand holding and a lot of uh, discovery that is done, which is maybe sometimes less discovery and more listening to people say about what hasn't worked in the past,
Mhm.
versus, what might be a great solution for them, or the value that they need in the future. But it's definitely a lot of communication about, here's our plan, here's who we've talked to, because they want to make sure that we've talked to everybody in their organization from a product perspective, and that we've heard all the important voices. And then we do a lot of communication about, here are designs, here are the things that we learned from you. So really regurgitating everything back to them, and making sure that they feel like they've been heard more than more than I've done in a SaaS background or SaaS companies previously. Um,
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just a quick question, Ben. What happened? What did you do when you got kickback from stakeholders, internal stakeholders for doing this? Because you always do. Nobody's ever fully on board, or it's not, your full team's never always on board.
Yeah. There are definitely people who come from the same area that don't see things the same way. So a lot of it is talking about, hey, this isn't complete yet. First of all, we want to iterate on this. We're going to be watching engagement. If people don't feel like this is the right solution or the right question to be answered, we're going to change it. We're going to listen to them, and then being able to point back to things like our Pendo feedback usage, and talking about, look at all these ideas that have come in and how they progress through that life cycle. We're going to be doing the same thing with this. This is just the first release of this. It's kind of the MVP for this particular feature,
Mhm.
to help your area, and helping them have confidence that we're not going to deliver this and never talk to them again, or just drop it from here. So people have when we show that we have been listening to other stakeholders and implemented things in an iterative way and continuing to engage with them, that's helped, and provided a little confidence, and built some trust, for us as well, and kind of some social equity, I'd say.
No, I love that. Yeah, that's been it's a challenge for every organization, and I've had to deal with that just like everybody here as well. You're constantly it's a balancing act to where you're not a single person team, and you have to work with a lot of people to make everything work, and being able to communicate is the best way to make that work. We are at about 5 minutes left. So I have one more question for you that should take up the rest of the time. And it's about the future goals of JLL. And I want to know what the biggest problem you have that you're trying to solve right now.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think this is super unique. I'm sure everybody here is probably trying to do some of the same things, which are about how to integrate AI into your workday, but more importantly for me, into our application. So we're working really hard on integrating Gen AI and agentic AI into the application. Um, and that's been really fun. It's a new challenge, and one of the things that I keep talking about with my team, which is easier said than done, is to think about, not just bolting on these tools, but really thinking about how our users' journey with analytics should change, or how it might shift from, kind of a dashboard or metric centric type of approach, to being able to maybe think about it as Gen AI or agentic AI first, and just how that changes and how we might reimagine what we do with that. So it's been a lot of really utilizing our really talented people in our UX research and design teams to partner with product, to come up with a whole bunch of really interesting ideas, and test them, with a lot of our users. So it's a big problem, but also really exciting, and a fun thing to play with. with an area that's expanding and changing so quickly for us all.
Yeah. So you've enjoyed working with AI then so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I think you have to embrace it. One of the challenges that we've had is really simplifying the problems that we want to solve with it. Because there's so much that you could do and so many ideas that people have. So really aligning on what we want to achieve with it
Mhm.
and the strongest use cases for it, and then simplifying it for our engineering teams. And as we communicate it out, has been really key for me and my team to make sure that, hey, here's how we're approaching it. Here are the things that we feel like are important first, even though there are a
Mhm.
million things that this amazing technology can do, as everybody's seen. But here's why we feel these things are the things we want to attack first.
Now, what I love about hearing you talk, Ben, is I've worked with a lot of organizations that they focus on AI and how to help the customer, which is important. But JLL it focuses a lot on how we can help internal users. And that is a breath of fresh air, and I love it. Unfortunately, we are at time. So we're going to conclude this webinar. A few things to take away from this is one, AI. That's going to be a big part of the future. It's a big problem a lot of people are trying to solve, and engaging internal users to be able to get that done is going to be huge. Also, with the Azara story, did you have any insights that you want to give, Ben? I don't want to give them all. We talked about a lot today.
Oh boy. I think it's just kind of reiterating what I just said. It's for us getting Azara to be a successful application internally with a really strong and increasing sentiment has just been about alignment with stakeholders and simplifying what we're trying to do and tell that story. Again, I know that's easier said than done, but simplifying has been something really critical for us.
No, I love it. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder, this has been recorded. We're going to be sending it out to the vast group that anybody who's come here. And this has been a webinar by Balboa Solutions. So if you have any questions, please contact us at balboa.solutions. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's time. We'll see ya.